Hello there, welcome back to the channel. It's Chris here. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is the final part of my Airfix Sabre build. I've now got it to the stage where it's almost ready for primer, but there's a few things to be done. I've painted up the gun sight, put it in, I've added some details, painted some details inside the cockpit, and added the, I think it's a red warning light, that's what it says on other photos. I've seen a yellow, I don't know. Glued the fuel tanks underneath, so this is almost ready for primer. I've got the main canopy parked and the windshield all masked up. I just did that by myself, didn't use a masking sheet. The one thing left to do is the pilot all by its little lowsome here. Let's tighten up. I've just done a basic job. I even used an Airfix brush that was in another kit, in a Mustang kit. I just need to paint the, where's my finger? I just need to paint that headrest red, so I've just painted that in an off-white to go with. And I'll put a little wash on him, and also I'll do a wash in the back here. I'll probably just use a Tamiya dark grey like that, just to bring out a few of the details, and then get the canopy on and we can prime it and I can get the painting done. So let's get stuck into it. Alright, I've got the pilot all painted up. I've got his red, it's very red, dog cock red actually, headrest in there. It's still a little bit wet. I made a little boo-boo on the back of his helmet, but I fixed that up with a bit of dark grey. I've got his seat in there. He looks okay, nice and happy and content. Put the wash on those back wires back there. I didn't want to go too stark. It's just the dark grey. I think that's good enough. And the front windscreen is glued on. Now, I prefer to use Tamiya extra thin on my clear parts. A lot of people get a bit worried about that. It's going to fog up and what have you, but you've just got to use, just like you do with normal plastic, with non-clear plastic, the bare minimum required. Don't flood it. So yeah, so that's the next stage. I'm not going to do this on camera because I always like to get the fit just right, because trying to fill canopy is a bit of a pain, but I have dry fitted this several times with this back piece in place to see if it actually fits, and the whole cockpit tub is actually just floating there at the moment. It doesn't have any really positive attachment to the fuselage, like I said in the first couple of parts of this build. And I can still see there's going to be one little flaw here after I prime, and I think there's still going to be a little bit of an issue there in front of the windscreen, but I think the canopy is going to go on okay. So I'm going to glue that on, let it set, won't play with it at all. Before I put canopies on, I always give it a clean, so get a cotton bud, Q-tip or whatever you've got, just to remove the the oils and stuff that you might have pressed on it on the inside, and just to get rid of that, find a little bit of phlegm. I'm always finding penny hairs from my dog, my Belgian Shepherd, or Archie hairs from my cat. Nice black cat, so that's always going good. So let's quickly get into the most exciting stage of this entire build, well for me at least, is the paint. But I'm only going to do a very simple paint job, so don't get too excited. And like I said, I think I just need to fix a few tiny little flaws, but let's just barrel on into it. Time to paint the beast. Okay, it's all primed up, and I had a few issues in the wing roots there. It's not 100% correct, you probably can't see it in there, but it's good enough for government work. I'm pressing forward with it. There were gaps on the canopy as well that I had to fix, and a few other a few seam lines here and there. I'm just going to press forward and get this finished because I'm really losing my mojo with it, and I keep finding faults the closer I look at the kit. I hate it when I get to that stage of a build. Anyway, let's talk about paint. So it's going to be easy to paint. I'm just going to do Tamiya paints for this one. So for the top, I'm just going for 81 green and 77 grey for the camouflage colours. Black, I'll just choose a black. I'll probably do NATO black. For PRU blue, the underside though, this colour here, bit of a hard one to match. I'm just going to fill around with these colours. I found a match online that sort of works. Upside down, Miss Jane. XF14 for a little bit of the green, grey, the dull medium blue, and a bit of white just to brighten it up a bit. So I'll try that. So I'm going to paint the bottom first, and so I'll I'm going to do this version because it's the simplest one. I just need to mask off the black at there, and then just a little bit of I think there's some matte light grey on the tail. That's easy enough to do, yeah, press forward. So I'm getting a nice, I've done half the underside there, that PRU blue using the XF18 and the XF14, a little bit of white. I think that's given a fair enough colour. There's definitely a green hue to that, a green grey hue, so I'll just continue and paint the rest of the underside. I wasn't that happy with the blue that I've come up with. It's a little bit dull, a little bit uninteresting. So I'm just adding a little bit of royal blue just to give it a tint. So I'm just applying that like a filter almost, just to brighten it up a little bit. But you can see the landing gear still, that's how stark it was. I'm just going to go over that. So this is very thin, Mr. Leveling Thinner. It's probably only 2 drops of paint per 10 drops total. So it's nice and thin. And it's quite hot today, so I need to make the paint nice and thin, can't make it too thick. So that's giving a nicer, darker, more interesting sheen. I might just give it another couple more very, very light coats just to pop it up a bit. So I've put the dark sea grey colours down. Well, colour, it's just basically the Tamiya XF77 was a fairly good match. A bit hard to spray over the grey, but it came up well. So I'm just going to get some sausages out, some blue tack sausages as they're called, or I use silly putty, and just make some soft demarcations between them and spray the RAF green. Time to put the green down. As you can see, I've already started to put the wiggles on around the sausages. The reason I do that is so I'll make sure that I'm painting in between the lines first, and then I'll go over it. So I'll just fill it in on this side. So I don't need to mask up everything because I'm using fairly thin paint here. Just checking the references. Yes, I'm getting them green in here. And with this high heat, those sausages are melting nicely to make nice soft lines. 3, 2. So after applying a gloss coat, which is this Tamiya X22 with a bit of Mr. Leveling Thinner, I've had a really bad reaction there. I don't know if you can see just along the demarcation there. The gloss coat went down fine everywhere else, but wherever I put those panzer putty or silly putty sausages, it's had a reaction. And I've tried to paint, I've sanded it back to get rid of these little blotches and things. I've tried to respray over it. On the other wing, I've been able to fix a little bit here, but it's still a little bit evident. And I've been able to fix a little bit in here. Where's the other one? Let's have a look. Yeah, just up there on the tail. Can you see there in between the... So it's really weird. It's a really weird artifact. I've never seen that before. Never had that sort of reaction. I've used lacquer paints throughout, and you know, the paint, when I put the paint down over on the top, it didn't react to anything. It was just, yeah, when I put the gloss coat over that panzer putty. So that's a shame. And what I would normally do at this stage is basically sand this all back to bare plastic, respray and do it all over again, but I can't be bothered. I'm just going to push forward with this and get this thing done. Just by happy accident, I've been able to make a few little effects there on the fuselage, so it's a little bit worn, a little bit whatever. But all I'm going to do now is just going to put the decals on, put down a wash, matte coat it, and call it a day because I've had enough. All right. So I've put a matte coat down on those decals, and apart from 1 or 2 spots where there's a tiny little bit of silvering, usually on a stencil or 2, I'm pretty happy with how that's gone. And pretty much the last thing to do is just to apply a panel line wash. I'm just going to use pretty simple Tamiya dark brown, but I will give it a little bit of enamel thinner just to thin it down, just a touch. Because I've put a matte coat on this, I just need to be a little bit extra careful when I put the wash down, so I'll do it progressively. I'll just put a little bit down, clean it up as I go, and I'll use a very, very small brush. There's not many panel lines to go over, so it should be not hard to do. So let me get started. So we come to nearly the favourite part of the build, and that's when you put the final matte coat on. So I like to use the Gunze GX 113 flat UV cut, so that gives you your final clear coat to protect the model from the vagaries of the sun and dirt and dust and whatever. I've done the bottom. I just thin it with a little bit of Mr. Leveling Thinner and just some light coats just to seal in the panel line washes. So this is what I use to seal in the decals. There goes Mr. Compressor. So just a couple of light coats, and yeah, I'm out there. So I'll just give it another coat, and then all I need to do is put on the pitot tube and unmask the canopy, and we're done. Alright, it's done, it's complete, it's finito. So there it is on the base. And if I can just get my hand out of the shot, maybe I can swivel it around for you to have a look at the finished product. I haven't really gone overboard with weathering. I've just done a basic panel line wash and left it at that, no chipping or any sort of other wear. There is a little bit of, I guess, fuel leaking sort of stuff I've tried to do around the fuel caps, but yeah, the build's finished. The best part of the build was probably the decals. They performed admirably well. If I made the decal solution a little bit too hot, or the water a little bit too hot, they started to curl, but apart from that, that's my fault. Just got to get the sweet spot. They went down really nicely. As for the rest of the build, well, you know, I had my own problems, but I think the kit's got its own problems. I think it's overreaching. That'd be the one thing I would say. It's not a disappointing kit, although for the money, like I said, it's $80 here. I think it's a bit too expensive for what you get. Yeah, I would only build this wheels down. All the other reports I've seen online, all the other guys have said that if you build the main undercarriage parts and the nose gear, that gives the entire cockpit and the jet intake some purchase and some engineering, so it all locks in very, very nicely and fits well. Maybe even help with that wing fit as well that I still had problem with, but I have seen other people have problem with the wing fit. And of course with the gun bays, so I think this side was the best side for gun bays. Can't really get in there that well, but yeah, with the gun bays open, you're not going to have a problem with the fit of the panel. As you can see, it's still a little bit recessed there. It's not quite right, but yeah, overall not a bad build, but too expensive a kit. I would go for the Academy one, or if you're really hard done by, try Italeri. But I mean, I might get another Academy one and give that a go. So yeah, you can find all the other builds parts up on the screen somewhere. I'll leave a link. But until next time, keep your aircraft in the air. That's where they belong. And happy modelling. Cheers.